on that day. By then, 1,000 Americans had been infected. About 38 had died from the pandemic. Here we are a year later, as we observe that sad moment and everything that has ensued from them, with over 500,000 Americans who have died. Around 30 million have become infected. And again, our hearts are broken for them, for their families, and for all of those who are affected by the coronavirus. But we also today are celebrating legislation that will make a tremendous difference. President Biden's American Rescue Plan is a plan to crush the virus and to save lives and livelihood of the American people. It is historic, it is monumental, it is consequential, and I said it's probably the most consequential legislation many of us will ever vote for in the Congress. I put it on the par with the Affordable Care Act as having serious consequences for the well-being of the American people. The Biden plan will make an immediate difference in people's lives, injecting vaccine into their arms, money into their pockets, children going back into school safely, and people going to work safely. So it's just remarkable. It's remarkable legislation. Unfortunately, Republicans, as I say, vote no and take the dough. You see already some of them claiming, oh, this is a good thing or that's a good thing, but they couldn't give it a vote. But anyway, enough of them. I talked about children in school. When I talked about this legislation yesterday, I talked about it in terms of America's children. Children are my why I went from housewife to House Speaker, because of the children, that 1 in 5 children in America lives in poverty. As a mother of 5, I couldn't abide that and wanted to make a difference in public policy. 1 in 5 goes to sleep hungry at night. That was even before the coronavirus. And I've always said that the 3 most important issues facing the Congress are our children, our children, our children. Their health, their education, the economic security of their families, including the pension security for their grandparents, and an environment in which they can thrive safely, a world at peace in which they can reach their fulfillment. Well, the first 3 of those, their health, their education, and the economic security of their families, was very much affected by the Biden American Rescue Plan. We're very proud of what it does for children, their health, their education, and the economic security of their families. Today on the floor, we go to that 4th place, a safe environment in which our children can thrive by passing the background check legislation. It's hard to imagine legislation being more popular than the rescue plan, 75%, whatever. This legislation, background checks, closer to 90%. Bipartisan support across the country, receiving the support of gun owners, hunters, and the rest. They've all had to do a background check. Why shouldn't others? Our chairman of the task force, Mike Thompson, is a hunter, is a veteran, and is a gun owner. And he has had, again, protective of the First Amendment rights of gun owners, but also protective of the survival of our children. So I see this issue through the eyes of our children. I tell my colleagues the stories when I go to like a child care center in my district several years ago. We're playing on the floor with stuff, and all of a sudden a balloon burst and the kids yell, "Drop." 4-year-old children yelling, "Drop." And that is not unusual in certain communities. What are we doing to our children? As Senator Murphy this morning in our press conference talked about what it does to the well-being of children to live in a dangerous atmosphere. And so we all know about the children in Newtown, and I thought for sure we would get gun violence prevention legislation passed then, but they said no time and time again. Florida, Nevada, you name it, all over the country. So here we are with this legislation, and we're very optimistic that with 90% support in the public and with a public awareness, again, the drumbeat created by the people out there, the survivors of gun violence. We told them we're not resting until we get this job done. And today we're taking a giant step in that direction for the children. And as I say about these members of Congress, there's no, if you're afraid to vote for gun violence prevention because of your political survival, understand this: the political survival of none of us is more important than the survival of our children and the fear that they have of this. So, as I've said about the rescue package, how great it was. We sent it over to the Senate in a package that had been negotiated. There were some changes, not much, so that we could receive it back in terms of the essence of the bill. But one important part of it that did not survive the bird rule or the bird lady or whatever it is over there was the minimum wage. And we will persist with the minimum wage. Now, what I want you to understand is, because so many times you hear people say, well, I'm for a $10 minimum wage, or I'm for an $11 minimum wage. Well, understand what the fight for 15 has been all about. It's about a fight for 15 where by 2025, people will arrive at $15. So if you're for a $10 raise in the minimum wage now, it's only $9.50 in this year, 2021, $11 in 2022, $12.50 in 2023, $14 in 2024, and finally $15 in 2025. I've been fighting for the fight for 15 for a number of years. Quite frankly, I think it should be higher. But this is the fight that we are in. So if you think it's okay to have a $10 minimum wage, we don't even get there this year. We don't even get there this year. When we passed the bill in 2007, it was one of the first bills we passed in the first 100 hours of the new Democratic majority. It was one of our fight for, 6 for 6, the 6 for 06 that we had, 6 bills. We passed it. We sent it to the Senate. It didn't make it there, but we put it in an appropriations bill, and it passed. First, we passed it, and President Bush vetoed it. But then we put it in an appropriations bill, and then it was passed and signed by the president. So it was a fight then for $7.25, really. I tell the story that when we went outside to celebrate, Senator Kennedy, who was the leader of it as the chairman of the Health Committee in the Senate, he came to the podium and he said, you know what we have to do now? We have to raise the minimum wage, because he knew that $7.25 wasn't even enough then. But here it is, $9.50. Can you live on $9.50? Family of 4, both parents making the minimum wage, $7.25, still under the poverty line. And by the way, a low substandard minimum wage is corporate welfare. It is subsidizing the private sector not to reward work. And how do we subsidize it? Medicaid, food assistance, housing assistance, and the rest. So the taxpayer is subsidizing the low minimum wage for the private sector. Fortunately, not everybody in the private sector thinks that way, and they respect the dignity of work, and many of them have come closer to a, not even a living wage, but at least a higher minimum wage. So this is we're not giving up on that. We're not giving up on gun violence prevention. We've told the survivors again and again, we're not going away. We will persist until the law is changed and we have safety for our children. So again, this is a hopeful time, and I want to praise, of course, Senator Schumer, Leader Schumer, for his leadership in sending us back a bill that we did not have to amend or go to conference on because it resembled enough what we had sent over there, except for the minimum wage. And we'll find a path on that. So again, 1 year ago, declared a pandemic. In the course of that time, declared a hoax, all the rest of that, avoiding science and the rest, and now truly an attempt to crush the virus.